I'm 82 years old, and there's a kind of silence in my house now that I never imagined when my children were small. It's not just quiet, it's absence, the kind that settles into the furniture, the walls, even into your own breathing. I didn't lose my children all at once. I lost them slowly over years, long before their bodies were gone from my life. I'm telling this now because there isn't much time left to pretend I don't understand what happened. This isn't about blaming them. It's about finally being honest with myself. Most mornings I wake up before the sun. My body does that now, whether I want it to or not. I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I forget to finish, and I look at my phone. It stays dark. No messages, no missed calls. I tell myself they're busy. I've been telling myself that for decades. I'm 82 years old, and there's a kind of silence in my house now that I never imagined when my children were small. It's not just quiet, it's absence, the kind that settles into the furniture, the walls, even into your own breathing. I didn't lose my children all at once. I lost them slowly over years, long before their bodies were gone from my life. I'm telling this now because there isn't much time left to pretend I don't understand what happened. This isn't about blaming them. It's about finally being honest with myself. Most mornings I wake up before the sun. My body does that now, whether I want it to or not. I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I forget to finish, and I look at my phone. It stays dark. No messages, no missed calls. I tell myself they're busy. I've been telling myself that for decades. The days stretch long when you're old. There's a lot of time to think. Too much, really. You replay things you once rushed past, conversations you half listened to, moments you assumed would repeat themselves. When you're young, you think life comes in endless rounds. At my age, you realize it was always counting down. I have 3 children, or maybe I should say, I had 3 children. They're alive as far as I know. I say that carefully. Alive doesn't always mean present. Alive doesn't mean close. Alive doesn't mean you know who they've become. When they were little, they followed me everywhere, tugged at my sleeve, asked questions I didn't have patience for. They wanted to show me drawings, tell me stories that went nowhere, sit beside me just to be near. I remember feeling tired all the time. Tired from work, tired from responsibility, tired from the noise. I thought tired was temporary. I thought their neediness would pass. I didn't think about what would replace it. Back then, I believed I was doing the right thing. I worked long hours, not because I loved the work, but because it felt necessary. It gave structure to my days. It gave me a sense of being useful, respectable. I told myself I was providing. That was the word I used whenever something felt off. Providing. I left early in the mornings, came home late. When I did sit with them, my mind was elsewhere. Bills, deadlines, the future. I thought the future was something I could secure with effort. I didn't realize I was trading the present for a version of tomorrow that never really arrived. There were small moments. I see them clearly now. A school play I missed because a meeting ran late. A conversation cut short because I needed quiet. A weekend I promised but postponed. None of it felt dramatic at the time. It all seemed reasonable, sensible, adult. I remember my oldest once asking if I could help with homework. I said, "Not tonight." I don't remember what I was doing instead. I just remember the look, not angry, just accepting. That's the look that should have scared me. They learned not to ask. I taught them that. As the years went on, the house grew calmer, fewer interruptions, fewer demands. I told myself this was progress, children growing independent. That's what you're supposed to want, isn't it? I didn't notice that independence, once encouraged too early, can turn into distance that never quite closes again. By the time they were teenagers, we lived parallel lives under the same roof. They went to their rooms, I went to mine. Meals were quieter, conversations shorter. I told myself this was normal. I told myself I'd reconnect later when things slowed down. Things never slowed down. They just changed shape. They grew up. They moved out. There were hugs, of course, phone calls at first, occasional visits. I told myself this was how adulthood worked. Everyone gets busy. Everyone drifts a little, but drifting is only harmless if you know how to swim back. The truth is, I didn't know my children as adults. I knew who they had been. I filled in the rest with assumptions. I assumed they were fine. I assumed they knew I loved them. I assumed silence meant stability. Years passed that way. Birthdays marked with cards, holidays negotiated around schedules, conversations stayed polite, surface level. We talked about work, weather, plans. We didn't talk about feelings. We never really had. I told myself that was just our way. Then came the first real loss. My wife got sick. It wasn't sudden, but it was relentless. Watching someone you've built a life with fade like that changes how you see everything. I expected my children to come closer then. Part of me believed crisis would pull us together. They came, yes, they helped. They were kind, but they were also distant in a way I couldn't name at the time. They did what needed to be done, then returned to their lives. I didn't know how to ask for more. I didn't know if I had the right. After she died, the house felt hollow, not just because she was gone, but because there was no one left who knew me fully, no shared history in the room, no witness to the life we'd lived. I waited for my children to fill that space. They didn't. That wasn't their job, but I didn't understand that then. The calls became less frequent, the visits shorter. Eventually, they were the ones too busy. Funny how that turns around. I felt confused, hurt, a little angry, if I'm honest. I wondered where I'd gone wrong. I wondered why my children seemed like strangers. It took years to see the answer, and even now it stings. I didn't lose them suddenly. I lost them by always choosing later. Later conversations, later attention, later closeness. I taught them that my presence was conditional, that my mind was elsewhere, that love was quiet and unspoken and easily postponed. They learned to live without needing me, and they did it well. There's a moment that stays with me. My youngest, already grown, came by once. We sat in the living room. The television was on, but neither of us was watching. I wanted to say something real. I wanted to ask about their life, their fears, their regrets. Instead, I commented on the weather. They left shortly after, hugged me politely. That was it. I sat there afterward, realizing I didn't know how to reach them, not because they were cruel or distant by nature, but because we never practiced closeness. We practiced efficiency, independence, emotional restraint. At my age, you don't get many chances to fix things. Time stops being generous. It becomes exact. I've tried reaching out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't blame them. I'm grateful for what connection remains, but I grieve what never formed, what I assumed would come naturally without effort. I see other older people talk about their children visiting, calling daily, sharing their lives. I smile and nod. Inside, there's a quiet ache, not envy exactly, more like recognition of a path I didn't take. What can't be fixed is the past. You don't get to go back and sit on the floor with your children when they wanted you there. You don't get to hear the story stories they stopped telling. You don't get to practice being present when they were still practicing being human. You can apologize, but apologies don't rebuild years. They just acknowledge them. I don't say this to make anyone feel guilty. I say it because I finally understand that love isn't just intention, it's attention, and attention has a timing that can't be postponed forever. If you're listening to this and you still have people who reach for you, who want your time, your presence, your listening ear, understand how rare that is. It feels endless when you're in the middle of it. It isn't. I thought my children would always be there. I thought the bond was automatic. I didn't realize it needed maintenance like anything else that matters. Now, at 82, I live with acceptance. Not peace exactly, but understanding. I've made my calls. I've said my words. Some landed, some didn't. That's life. The house is quiet, but it's honest now. I no longer pretend the distance was accidental. I see my part in it clearly. If this meant something to you, hold it gently. You don't need to rush or panic. Just notice where you're spending your attention. Notice who's waiting quietly. As for me, I'll finish my tea. I'll sit with the quiet, and I'll remember my children as they were and as they are, and as I once hoped we'd be together. That has to be enough now.